Let me provide some background. My wife and I, both 54 years old, have been married for 31 years. She works as an RN at a hospital, while I've been employed by a home builder since I was 18. We have two grown children in their 20s who have moved out. In our mid-40s, we decided to pursue my wife's dream of running a bed and breakfast. We've been intermittently searching for suitable properties for years. Recently, we stumbled upon a 5-acre property with a home dating back to the 1870s. The original owners were prominent landowners in the area with a significant agricultural business. Over time, as fewer family members wanted to continue farming, parcels of land were sold off. Our town is experiencing rapid growth due to its natural attractions and scenic beauty, which are drawing in tourists. While the farmland along the main highways is being developed, the house and land we purchased are located away from the bustling highways. Since acquiring the property, my wife and I have been renovating the entire house. Neglect over the years has resulted in some basic maintenance issues, and our goal is to restore the house to its former glory from 150 years ago while also making a living. My wife has taken charge of decorating the rooms while I handle the renovations, paying for all materials and any professional assistance needed. Given my handy skills, I am able to complete most of the work myself. In the past few years, the housing industry has seen a significant surge in demand, and we would work tirelessly if given the chance. I was earning substantial income until last year. The pandemic disrupted our work in 2020, followed by shortages in materials. Throughout this time, my wife was on the front lines at the hospital for the past 18 months. She worked for weeks at a time without any days off, as medical staff stayed at the hospital, often sharing rooms. The prolonged and intense work schedules brought the staff closer together. They typically worked for 4 weeks and then had 2 weeks off, a cycle that continued from March of last year into the fall, and again after Thanksgiving. After our children grew older, my wife would often assist others if they needed help. She witnessed young parents at the hospital in tears because they couldn't spend time with their families. In response, she generously offered her days off to those staff members in need, sacrificing her own time. She was not alone in this. There were others who also extended their support in similar ways. The entire COVID experience had a profound effect on her. Witnessing people being put on ventilators and the loss of lives changed her in ways I couldn't fully understand. She became more distant, and our sex life came to a halt. I attributed it to her experiences or perhaps her age. Despite my attempts to discuss it, she simply expressed that she no longer felt the same. Nevertheless, we continued to work closely on renovating the house. We even planned trips to an area in our state known for its large Amish population renowned for their woodworking and quilting skills. We purchased several pieces of furniture for the bedrooms and handmade quilts. Last weekend, we were supposed to take a 3-day trip to buy dining room furniture from the same area. Additionally, I occasionally pay with some wood obtained from dismantling old barns, a side gig of mine. Barnwood is highly sought after, and I often trade it for goods or services. However, my boss informed me that everyone was needed for work the entire week due to the availability of wood and shingles for a house we had been waiting to finish. I suggested we go on Saturday and Sunday instead, but my wife decided to go with some coworkers on Friday because there was a fall festival happening too. That evening, I went to a local bar where I ran into one of her coworkers. I asked if she was joining the trip, but she had no idea about it. I texted my wife to ask if she had arrived safely and who was with her. She replied mentioning this friend, her other close friend, and someone named Stevie. I had heard this name mentioned over the past few months and had always assumed it was a female. I asked her friend at the bar if she knew anyone by the name of Stevie, but she didn't. However, she mentioned there was a Steven who worked with them. On Sunday afternoon, when my wife returned home, she had bags of tablecloths, napkins, kitchen towels, and other items from her trip. As she showed me what she bought, she came across a smaller bag. Upon seeing its contents, she remarked, "Oh, not this bag, it's not for us." Initially, I let it pass. However, later on, when I checked the bag, I discovered that she had hidden it in a closet. It contained decorations for a man cave dedicated to a college sports team I wasn't interested in. I requested to speak with her about the trip. I asked once more about who accompanied her. She mentioned the same 3 individuals. Then, I inquired about Stevie, someone I hadn't met. She claimed Stevie was a female coworker. When I uncovered the man cave decorations and informed her that her friend, who was supposed to be away last weekend, had her plans disrupted, I asked about Stevie once more. At this point, she began crying and confessed that Stevie was indeed a man they worked with. She admitted they had been together alone and had engaged in a sexual relationship since the hospital lockdown last year. As a result, she is now living in one of the finished bedrooms, while I remain in our original bedroom. I plan to consult a lawyer on Monday because I'm unsure about what to do regarding the house, our business, and our marriage. It seems to me that she is remorseful for being caught, but not for the affair itself. When I asked if she would end the affair with Stevie, she expressed uncertainty. Story 2. I, 32 years old male, left my girlfriend, 27 years old female, in the city after she repeatedly broke my trust, marking the end of yet another relationship marred by infidelity. In fact, this pattern of being cheated on has persisted in my last 3 relationships. We had been together for 8 months and were planning a trip to a convention together. Prior to the trip, she enthusiastically informed me that she had made a new friend who was giving us free tickets to the event. However, things took a turn when she admitted to unintentionally flirting with this guy and questioned whether she should feel guilty about it. When I asked if he was aware she had a boyfriend, she replied, "No, it felt awkward to mention. Plus, people are more likely to give you freebies if you're single." Expressing my discomfort, I reminded her of my past experiences with infidelity, which had deeply affected my mental well-being. Although she disclosed her own history of cheating in a previous relationship during a difficult period in her life, she assured me she had changed. Initially, I believed her transparency about her interactions with this guy was a positive sign. However, on the day of the convention, she gravitated towards her new friend, spending the majority of her time in his company. I observed them engaging in intimate gestures like whispering, shoulder rubs, and giggling, which unsettled me. Despite feeling uneasy, I chose to keep my concerns to myself until we were alone. I attempted to hold her hand at one point, a gesture we often shared, but she rebuffed me, citing stress while continuing to engage with the other guy in lively conversation. Towards the end of the day, when we were alone, I mustered the courage to address my discomfort. "I'm really uncomfortable with how you're prioritizing this guy you just met over me. It feels like you're crossing boundaries that hurt me deeply, and I just want to emphasize how much this hurts me and give you the opportunity to stop. I'm not fond of this guy, and I'm troubled by the extra attention you're giving him." Her responses were defensive. "I'm not cheating on you," she insisted. "You can be friends with him too. Just try talking to him more." And then she accused me, "I feel like you're focusing on how I'm treating a friend because of your past experiences with cheating." I stood my ground. "I don't like it, and I hope you take my feelings seriously." The next morning, I noticed her texting on her phone. Pretending to be asleep, I peeked and saw she was messaging this guy, pouring out her feelings about our argument and seeking solace. Meanwhile, he was showering her with compliments, making her feel special. Each message I glimpsed sank my stomach further until I couldn't bear it any longer. As I greeted her, she quickly turned her phone away, claiming she was texting her coworkers and complaining about her back hurting. Suspicious, I gave her a puzzled look. "You think I'm hiding something because I want to turn over to ease my back pain?" she protested. "You were texting his name," I confronted her. "No, I wasn't. I told you who I was texting." "You're targeting me again," she retorted defensively. My eyes widened in disbelief. Sitting up, I stared blankly ahead. "Why would you lie about that? I saw you texting him." She broke down, pleading with me. "I'm so sorry," she begged. "I'll never do it again. I felt like you were singling me out because of him. He's just a friend, and I don't want you to think otherwise." Despite our reconciliation, the tension lingered as we returned to the convention, where she once again gravitated towards this guy, lavishing him with gifts. At the end of the day, I decided to head back to the hotel room while she expressed her intention to go out for drinks with him, inviting me along and hinting at the possibility of staying in his hotel room. I declined, bid her goodbye, and that marked the last time I saw her. I packed my belongings and drove back home, leaving her to realize my departure at 5 a.m. the next morning. She frantically called, accusing me of abandoning her. I reminded her that she was welcome to enjoy the remainder of her trip, but I had nothing more to offer, and her belongings were still in the room I had paid for. I reluctantly offered to pick her up if she truly needed a ride, but only out of necessity, not as her boyfriend, as her new friend could likely assist her. She criticized me for leaving her stranded without a place to go. Despite her tears and pleas, I stood my ground, having witnessed similar scenarios before. I had reached a point where I no longer cared. Reflecting on the situation, I struggled with trust, constantly wary of hidden motives or potential betrayals. While my friends assure me that I acted appropriately and shouldn't tolerate such behavior, I occasionally question whether I overreacted or was too sensitive. I wonder if there was a better way to handle the situation or if I somehow behaved poorly. Any feedback is welcome. I should clarify that this incident occurred a few months ago, but its peculiar nature has stayed with me, prompting me to share it. I am still processing certain aspects of it, but documenting it and hearing others' perspectives has been beneficial. I'll provide more details as requested. After my ex learned of my departure, she ceased contacting me for several days while she remained with the new guy to conclude the convention. When she eventually reached out, she claimed she had begged her friends for money to cover an Uber ride, which supposedly took her around 2 hours to retrieve her car. Frankly, I'm skeptical of her story, given everything else that transpired. Various friends, both hers and mine, reached out to inquire about the situation. I candidly shared the details and invited them to ask any questions they had, seeking their perspective on whether I was overreacting or if her behavior was indeed inappropriate. All 6 individuals expressed shock and profound disappointment in her actions. Upon her return home, several days later, she pleaded with me to communicate and explain what had happened and why I felt upset. I responded by expressing my lack of trust in her, emphasizing that she had breached a sensitive area linked to past trauma. I made it clear that I had no interest in fostering a relationship with someone who deemed it acceptable to mistreat their partner. Despite my stance, she insisted she would make every effort to win me back, to which I cringed and bid her farewell. Her subsequent request was for the return of her belongings. What belongings? I wondered. It turned out she wanted back the birthday gift she had given me. Considering they were the only birthday presents I had received that year, I inwardly sighed and agreed to send them back via FedEx, albeit begrudgingly. I detest FedEx, but it seemed fitting to use their services for a delivery to someone I held in such low regard. On a side note, she proposed meeting up somewhere to retrieve her belongings, or rather, my birthday presents, mentioning she was in the vicinity with someone. She deliberately kept it vague, perhaps hoping I would inquire about this mysterious companion. I chose not to ask, as I had no interest or concern. You might question why I entertained her request at this stage. She was well aware of where I lived and certainly capable of showing up unannounced if she desired something from me. However, she held no significance to me anymore, so for my own safety and privacy, it seemed prudent to comply and send her belongings to avoid any potential confrontations or lengthy arguments. I had no desire for further drama. Eventually, she reached out via text, wishing me Merry Christmas, and later attempted to engage me in conversation with a joke. I chose to ignore both messages. Let me be clear, I despise cheaters. Some may say I've had a string of bad luck, but it makes me question if this behavior is more common than not. My faith and trust in others were already shaky, but recent events have left them at an all-time low. Story 3. I, male, 25, was in a 7-year relationship with my girlfriend, female, 26. We lived together with 2 male roommates for the last 3 years. A few years ago, she started working night shifts and gradually distanced herself from me. She wouldn't cuddle while watching TV on her days off, and when I went to bed at night, she'd only come for a brief moment of cuddling if she was home. There were times when she had weeks off, and she would spend most of that time with my roommate, male, 24, whom I knew from our college dorm days freshman year. They would usually spend time smoking weed together when we had guests over, but it always seemed like there was something more. About a year ago, I lost my job, and shortly after, my dad passed away. I really needed support during this tough time, but she was always prioritizing work. I had no energy left to fight for affection, especially since she blamed me for not wanting to spend time together. She leaves for work at 7 p.m. and goes to bed around 5 a.m., making it difficult for us to connect. As a recent engineering graduate, I was looking for career opportunities that didn't involve night shifts, which wasn't an option in most places. She couldn't understand that changing to night shift would mean sacrificing the career I had worked so hard for. Then, I noticed she was spending more time with my roommate, especially after I stopped rushing home to see her before a night shift. They would stay up late, laughing and having a good time, while she blamed me for not putting in enough effort into our relationship. He didn't have a job and stayed home all day, so staying up late didn't affect him. She started waking up early to go on hikes with him while I was at work. Eventually, she ended the relationship, citing my lack of effort to spend time together. Just 2 days later, they went on a date, and the next morning, she came out of his room early. That was the last straw for me, and I moved out that day. They both claimed there were no romantic feelings between them, but I didn't believe it and decided to leave. Fast forward a few months, and now they are openly dating. Our other roommate confronted them about lying to both of us regarding their feelings for each other and betraying us. They both argue that their feelings for each other started after the breakup, but that's clearly not the case. This is someone I was ready to marry, but she didn't want to spend time together and insists that she's known for years that I would never marry her. And she cheated with my roommate, whom I considered a brother. For years, if someone mentioned cheating, she would passionately rant about how cheaters are the worst and how she would never talk to me again if I ever cheated, emphasizing that cheating doesn't have to be physical. Now that she cheated and I confronted them like she promised, they both vehemently deny cheating. I have never felt more betrayed in my life. Just a few extra details that were missed in the main story. The night we finally broke up, she came down to the bedroom, broke up with me, and within 60 seconds of leaving the room, she was upstairs in the living room laughing with him. Our other roommate and my best friend didn't move out initially because we both still hoped they weren't that involved with each other. When it became clear, he could hear them through the poorly soundproofed walls of the house sneaking around, that their relationship was romantic, he confronted them, and they concocted a lie, claiming that I was just looking for an excuse to move in with my sister. My best friend became upset and then moved out, leaving them with no one but each other. Neither of them has friends outside of the house, and now they don't have any friends at all. They insist that nothing was happening while we were still dating, but they still felt the need to hide the romantic part of their relationship from our roommate after I left, which clearly indicates that they were fully aware of their actions but didn't care about the consequences. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.